Good evening, guys. Good evening. Welcome to session 4, live session 4, flying through the week. It feels like yesterday. We were just kicking off on Sunday evening. Covered a lot of ground from then to now. But we've still got, in many ways, the best to come because now we've looked at the theory, we've looked at the science, we've looked at the neuroscience, we've looked at brain chemistry. Now we're kind of migrating across into the practical tools, okay? The actual things the tangible practices that we can adopt and we can embed to actually then begin to funnel into changes that we actually observe and see in our day-to-day life as the weeks, months, years unfold, okay? Massive thank you as always for all of the we have on these private Facebook groups, the Facebook gives you the statistics. It gives you the statistics of the group, and we've had more comments over the last 24 hours from the end of last night's session. We've had more comments than we've ever had in any of these 3 weeks we've run. Okay, and the only thing that I can attribute that to is just how emotive and how eye-opening the Eastern Life Audit is. Okay, if you haven't done it or you haven't watched last night's session, please watch it because last night's session is instrumental. Hi Beverly, I am feeling better. I haven't come down with anything, cleared the cough mainly, so that's good. Lots of essential oils, lots of andrographis, lots of Greek mountain tea. So I'm good, thank you. As always, if everyone could just give me a barrage of emojis, smiley faces, thumbs up, just to help everyone find the video, that would be great. But I've also had quite a lot of messages, well not quite a lot, we've had about 15 messages from people saying that actually the Eastern Life Audit is profound and they can see why it's so helpful, but actually it's quite exposing at the same time. It's quite daunting and it can be quite overwhelming. And I think if it wasn't, it wouldn't be working, okay? Because it's asking us to do something that perhaps we've never done before in our lives. It's asking us to look inwards and say, where am I not happy? Where do I want more? Where is there lack or scarcity? And, you know, it can be quite, it can be very exposing to look at ourselves in that way. And I've been there, you know, in 2018 when I spoke about it on Sunday, didn't I? When I made that massive overhaul of my life, I was in a rut. I was in the biggest rut I've ever been in. I wasn't happy. And it took the Eastern Life Audit to expose that in a way that made it no longer acceptable. And remember, this is the start of the process. It's not the end. And yes, it can be overwhelming, and yes, it can be daunting. But we need to frame the Eastern Life Audit as purely a catalyst. It's a means to an end. It's a catalyst to do those 3 things: increase awareness of where we need change. With awareness, we make better choices, and with better choices, we'll get better outcomes, always. Okay, so for everyone who said they feel, that it's been quite exposing in a good way, it is exposing. And the bigger the deficit between where we are and where we want to be, the more exposing it is. And I felt, when I did it, and I really did it with a mind to actually changing my life, it is really exposing. So I've been there, I know what it feels like, okay? But just use it as a catalyst, okay? So the aim being that you do it again in 12 months and you say, wow, look how far I've come. 12 months ago, my Eastern Life Audit, or 6 months, wherever, my Eastern Life Audit was like that 3 months ago, because in 3 months, it can be radical. And now look at it, in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, look how far I've come. So we're using this as a way of quantifying improvements and change, okay? Little one wouldn't go to sleep. Lara, I hope she's got to sleep now. I know what that feels like. So everyone who's commented about the Eastern Life Audit, it's a catalyst, okay? That's all it is. So thank you for all the honesty and all the comments about that, okay? So tonight I want to talk about the 4 keys for unlocking transformational success. It's one of the most ancient and revered kind of secrets of the Eastern tradition. Again, it's fascinating that all four of them are validated by Western research, particularly Western neuroscience. But before I get onto that, I just want to take 5 minutes just to go down a bit of a parallel track, because the whole aim for running this week is ultimately to make, and to have 1,200 people here is, facilitates that in a profound way. But ultimately, the motivation for running this week is because I want as many people, to know about this framework as possible. I want as many people to know about the concept of living in the magic, and I want as many people as possible to stand up and say, I want more, I expect more, and my expectations, I need to move into the magic. And I've seen too many people end their life with regrets, and that's something that's horrible. Particularly a few years ago, before COVID, when I was working almost exclusively with people with cancer, I've seen far too many of those people end their life with profound regrets around things they did, never things they did do actually, but around things they didn't do. And it changes the way you view life, I think, and it makes you realize how precious and how special we are, and how much we need to raise the bar of our expectations, so that when we are on our deathbed, we everyone's got regrets. I've got regrets, but they're small compared to the things we did do. And living in the magic is a way of mitigating that, of preventing that. And that's one of the reasons that Holly and I have put a phenomenal amount of work over the last, particularly 5 years, but the last 2 years, packaging the whole blueprint into one program called the Brilliant Life Blueprint. I know lots of you did it here last year. I've taught the blueprint for decades. Last year was the first time we put it into a group-based course. We're repeating it this year, okay? We only open the doors once a year. We're opening it now. So it's a 6-month coaching course that aims to give people taking part the entire blueprint, everything, okay? The entire Eastern blueprint for transformation and living in the magic, the entire Western blueprint that facilitates that evidentially into one package. So it's about bringing prosperity and success into all of those 8 pillars, okay? Particularly our health, our financial abundance, our careers, our relationships, our happiness, our contentment, the full spectrum. The blueprint that we teach in that 6-month course is the blueprint I used to get myself out of my rut in 2018. Okay, it's transformed my life. It's transformed the life of hundreds of people, thousands of people probably since then. And I think if the last few days, if this week has inspired you, or if this week has motivated you to kind of stand up and say, I really want to initiate change. I'm sick of not fulfilling my potential. I really want to take charge of my life and experience this magic and experience abundance and happiness and health and vitality. I'm sick of mediocrity. I want this year and all the years that come to be as brilliant as they can be. If this week has inspired you to do that in a few short days, imagine what happens in an immersive 6-month program. And that's why it's so powerful, because the Brilliant Life Blueprint is an online delivered group coaching program, okay, that merges, like I said, the Eastern traditions and all the entire framework, everything, with the entire Western framework. And it puts it into one place in a progressive and actionable way. It's not overwhelming. It's about every fortnight learning a new practice, a new technique that we build the framework upon, so that as the weeks go by, we're getting stronger, we're getting more empowered, we're getting more inspired, we're getting more positive, okay? And it's delivered on a dedicated web platform, and it's delivered on Zoom. So for all of the hundreds of people taking part in this week who aren't on Facebook, you can still take part. There is a private Facebook support group, and I'll talk about that in a second. So every month there's one live session, which is delivered on Zoom, which is about an hour-ish. And then there's one pre-recorded session every month. So every fortnight there is new content being released, okay? And it starts at the beginning and works through to the very end. Okay, so it's progressive, it's actionable, it's practical. These are tools that we pick up and actually adopt, okay? But there is also something we've added this year, which is we've recorded evidence-based best practice for building success and abundance in all 8 pillars. Okay, we spoke about the 8 pillars yesterday: health and service and meaning and career and, you know, hobbies, and all of those 8 pillars. We've pre-recorded kind of 30-40 minute videos around how you actionable, practical, evidence-based strategies for building success in those individual pillars. So there's a whole load of content there. So if you looked at your Eastern Life Audit and you said my hobbies or my levels of service you know, are low, how do you actually change that? These are practical, evidential tools that can facilitate that. Okay. There is a private Facebook support group. So those of you who are on Facebook, which is obviously everyone here, there is a Facebook support group. So it's like this, but obviously much smaller, much more intimate. And that for me is key. Okay. Because what does it do? Okay. Why does so many self-care behavioral change programs end? Or why do people fall off the wagon? Why aren't they successful? Because people lose motivation, they lose inspiration, they lose support, they lose impetus. I know from the clinical trials I ran that online support groups are the most powerful way of maintaining inspiration, motivation, providing support. With inspiration comes better compliance. With greater compliance becomes greater success. So the Facebook support group is a way of keeping everyone on track for the whole 6-month window. Okay. I know loads because we put this course live on the homepage this afternoon. I know we've had lots of people sign up already. For those of you who have signed up, your first task awaits. There's a video waiting for you on the web platform, which is instrumental before we dive into the full program. So those of you who've already signed up, I think 12 or 13 people have already signed up, do head to the web platform and look at the first video. Okay, so the doors are only open for a week. Okay, the doors are open until next Wednesday, the 22nd. Okay, if you can't make a session, Caroline, everything's recorded. Okay, everything is recorded and uploaded to the web platform, even the ad hoc Facebook videos I do. I go onto the Facebook group regularly just to provide snippets. They're all there for life. You get lifetime access to everything. Okay, so you can access it in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Okay. So the doors are open for 1 week until 10 p.m. next Wednesday, the 22nd, so that everyone is in place for the first live session. Okay, so it's open for a week. The course usually retails at £300. We've cut it in half, so it's now, or just under half. It's now, or sorry, just over half. It's now on sale for £145 for lifetime access for the full blueprint, everything. The Facebook group, the recordings, the live sessions, the workbooks, everything. Okay. There's also, if you want to get started, there's also there's installments. You can pay with 3 £45 installments. So it's £145 one-off payment or 3 £45 installments, which you can get started with now. So doors are open until next Wednesday. Okay, so for those of you who feel motivated, who feel like you want to maintain this energy, this impetus to say no more. I'm done with not being the best version of myself. I'm done with not being happy with key areas of my life. I'm done with it. I need and expect and aim and hope and dream for more. I can hand on heart say that I don't know any blueprint that's more effective. That's not to say that other blueprints aren't effective, but I don't know any that is as evidence-based, as time-tested, as holistic, and as complete as this blueprint. And I feel very privileged to be the custodian of this knowledge because it came to me from my mentors who learned it in the monasteries in Bhutan and Nepal and India. So I feel very privileged. Okay, so those of you who want to sign up, if you head over, I'll post a link once I finish, but if you head over to the homepage, you'll see a banner at the top. You can sign up there. Okay, and obviously for me, this is the most important part of my work, and I would be absolutely privileged to continue this journey with you. You know, if someone gave me a half-hour slot on BBC News to talk about one thing, this is what I would want to talk about, because it upsets me more than perhaps anything else seeing people with regret, and I just want to help people not have that. Okay, and this to me is the way to facilitate that. So for those of you who want to continue, I'd love to welcome you. Yes, that's another thing, Fiona. So those of you who are working in any kind of context, kind of clinically or holistically, homeopaths, herbalists, psychotherapists, obviously you can then teach this in your own work. There's no copyright, I just want to share the information because I was given it for free, and if once you've got it, it's yours to do what you want with it. If you can help others in your practice and your family and your friends, I will support you with everything I can to make that happen. So absolutely, Fiona. Right, so that's all said and done. I want to talk about tonight's content now, which is the famous 4 keys of prosperity, or the 4 keys for unlocking the doors of success. I haven't ever seen this written anywhere in a textbook. I've only ever got this from George, who was the Cambridge doctor I spoke about, who spent many years in Bhutanese monasteries. And again, I've taken those and then kind of correlated them with the Western neuroscience, and it's just astonishing how they line up. So you'll remember yesterday we spoke about the 8 pillars and the Eastern Life Audit, and we spoke about that as a way of isolating where improvement is needed, and then so that we are embryonically improving our life. We're building more success in all 8 pillars at the same time, embryonically. Okay, that's the linchpin to this model. And there's a whole blueprint for doing that. There's dozens of approaches and tools and techniques and mindset for taking the theory we've covered into tangible, quantifiable changes that you experience, yes, in your inner world, but just as, if not more importantly, in your outer world, in your actual life. And obviously that full framework is what makes up the 6-month course. But tonight I want to talk about a part of one of the most important parts of that collective blueprint, which is the 4 keys, often called the 4 keys of prosperity, or the 4 keys that unlock success. There's different names in different schools and contexts in there, particularly in the Himalayan traditions. And they are ideation, visualization, verbalization, and then most importantly, actualization. Okay, super easy to remember. Ideation, verbalization, visualization, actualization. Those keys unlock transformation in a way that I can't even describe to you. Okay, and I want to cover ideation is the first one. I want to cover that today, and I was thinking about covering 2 today. I was going to cover visualization. It's going to be too much. It's going to overrun. I don't want to bore everyone with too much in one go. So I'm going to run a bonus session at 7 p.m. tomorrow where we're going to talk about visualization, and I hate the word manifestation because it's been bastardized in the West. Okay, but I want to talk about the actual science, the actual research, the actual evidence around how our thought process and our expectations drives behavior, which drives change. And I want to talk about the science of that tomorrow. But today I want to talk about ideation because it's the most important one. You can't do the others without it. Okay. So what is ideation? So when I had that kind of epiphany in 2018 where I said, I'm done with this. It was that pressure almost of being a hypocrite, seeing all these people dying with regrets and realizing that if I didn't change my life, I would be the same. Ideation is where I spent, once I'd done the 8 pillars and the Eastern Life Audit, ideation is where I put the lion's share of my effort and time, particularly in the first few weeks. Okay, and ideation is about looking at your life audit, looking at the 8 pillars, okay, looking at where there is scarcity, where there is lack, where there is problems, where there is friction, where you are not happy. Also where you are happy, but looking at all 8, but particularly where you're not happy or where there's scarcity, and saying, right, what is the ideal endpoint for these pillars? What is the ideal? Not average or good or acceptable. What is the ideal goal for these 8 pillars? So you're idolizing, you're creating an ideation around what best case is. Okay, and you're doing it, you're removing ceilings, you're removing barriers. Okay, and the aim is to visualize, to in your mind create an idea of what 10 out of 10 looks like. We spoke about the Eastern Life Audit, 0 being as bad as it can get in your arena, and 10 being the best it could be. What would life look like to you if you had a 10 out of 10 in all 8 pillars? And I've never come across someone who's had that. I'm definitely not anywhere near that. But we want to aim, we want to aim for the top. What does a 10 out of 10 in all 8 pillars look like? And there's a beautiful, so has anyone read A Course in Miracles, which is a famous book that was translated from Tibet? And it's about kind of this. It's not the whole thing, but it contains lots of it. And it said there is no order of difficulty in transformation. That's a quote, a verbatim quote from these Himalayan traditions around living in the magic. There is no order of difficulty in transformation. Okay, so transforming your health and losing a stone is no harder or easier than earning more money, or finding a happy relationship, or starting the business of your dreams. We create a hierarchy of difficulty based upon our expectations and our beliefs and our neocortex. But this is about raising the bar, okay? It's about dreaming bigger, aiming higher, expecting more, looking further. It's not about mediocrity. It's not about thinking I'm never going to get there, I'm not good enough. It's about not perfect, because we're not perfect. What does ideal look like? And the way my mentor taught it to me, and it was the biggest driving factor in how I played this out in my life, was and we'll talk about this. So in the Brilliant Life Blueprint, the 6-month program, we talk about something called the weekly engineering system, where you engineer perfect weeks or ideal weeks. And this is what I was asked was, okay, you want to leave cancer research, you want to leave working at the hospital to do something, but what does ideal look like? If you could wake up on a Monday morning all the way through to the following Sunday, what does your ideal life look like in that week, in terms of your work, how much you're working, the work you're doing, your time for hobbies and passions, your time for family, all of it? What does an ideal look like? And it hit me between the eyes, because what a challenging question. That's what ideation is about. It's an ideation around how I want my life to look like. If someone said to me, you have 6 months to live in perfect health, how would you construct your weeks? Or when you, even more so, if you were to look back on your life in decades and decades to come, what would brilliant look like to you? If you could say, right, review your life from this day to the last day, what would have to happen for you to look back and say, yeah, even with the highs and lows, I lived it in the magic as much as I could. I was true to myself. And then write that down. So I did mine in 2018. I spent days, and I truly mean days, on my own, in complete isolation doing this. And I put everything down. This box is battered now because it's quite old. Everything, the whole blueprint, the whole mind map, everything of what I wanted my life to look like went in this box. And I still look at it. And this is one that I said where everything had come to fruition. And I wanted to, when I looked at my Eastern Life Audit, it was clear that my career was very low because it was consuming me, and I was burnt out, and I wanted something different. And my relationships are very low because I was never at home because I was working too much. So my ideation was around those two variables, because I still had time for my hobbies and passions. I still felt like I was helping people. Financially, it was very good. So I had those things, but I was having the life sucked out of me. So the aim then is, you could write bullet points, it could be mind maps, it could be descriptive writing. Big sheets of A3 paper work for me, okay? You write in the middle with a big bubble, ideal, 10 out of 10. And you start just letting your mind go free, okay? What hobbies and passions do you have, or would you like to have, or haven't you done for years? How would helping others make you feel? How can you help others? If you haven't got enough money, and if you haven't got enough money to be secure and safe, how much more do you need? Why do you need it? It's not about hedonism. It's not about buying silly cars and silly houses and silly designer clothes. It's not about that. It's about, Ayurveda calls it artha, which means abundance. And actually, Ayurveda talks a lot about money. It's really interesting, and it always surprises people because Ayurveda has a whole framework called Artha, which means abundance, material abundance. And there's a lot of common sense around why, because it says that if you are financially unstable or lacking, or you can't eat properly, or you can't afford to put the heating on or run your car, if you haven't got enough money, it makes it very hard to do the other 7 pillars, because your motivation drops, it puts strain on relationships, you can't pursue hobbies, it's harder to help other people. So actually Ayurveda talks a lot about not material, it's not interested in materialism, but in having enough money to support yourself and your family properly, okay? And you just brainstorm and you just let your mind go. Some people find it easier with descriptive writing, just literally writing on it page after page. Some people do bullet points, some people do, you know, mind maps, which is what I did. And for me, so I actually got my one here from the box. So when I did my one, like I said, it was career and it was relationships. This is what I wrote. So this was in February 2018. This is what I wrote after I'd left my job, mortgage, kids, you know, right in that kind of vulnerable space. I said, right, I had to be doing what I loved. I only wanted to do work that set me alight, that when I woke up on Monday, I looked forward to going to work. And I have this to this day. One of my greatest blessings is that I love my work. I love doing this. So I had to be doing what I loved. I had to be helping people and trying to make a difference. I had to have the flexibility to creatively take the business where I wanted it to go. I wanted to write. Okay, that was always my biggest goal, was to become an author and write books, and that's come to fruition, which I'm eternally grateful for. It had to allow me to be there each morning for school drop-off and in the afternoon for school pickup, and have dinner with my family most evenings, because I was missing that every day for years. No more missed bedtimes, so I could do, you know, bath, bedtime story in bed, and to be able to financially provide for my family. And I wrote a quote down here, and those of you who know me, you know, I think I said before, I'm not, you know, I hate money. I drive a rubbish car. I wear second-hand clothes. I'm not interested in money in any. If I won, I don't play the lottery, but if I won the lottery tomorrow, nothing. I wouldn't change houses. I wouldn't change cars. I'm not interested in money. But there's a quote by Oscar Wilde, which I wrote down, which was Oscar Wilde said, "My goal in life is to live as a millionaire tramp with enough money to provide security for my family and those I come across who are in need." And I'll never forget that, having enough money that you can, you know, if someone's car breaks down, you can help them. If your, you know, child wants to go on a school trip, you can comfortably pay for it. But no one would ever know. No one would ever know that you have enough money to do that in terms of the way you live your life. And that to me was really important. So that went on the list. And I wrote it down. And ideation is about just getting absolute clarity on what the ideal is across all of those 8 pillars, without the limits of the neocortex, without the limits of, well, you're never going to start a business, you know, you've got no experience. Says who? Says the neocortex, which is saying what? Don't do it, it's risky. Theta waves circumvent that. What are your dreams for businesses and work? What are your dreams for relationships? What are your dreams for traveling? What are your dreams for health, particularly health? You know, Ayurveda talks about this idea of it's called swastha with the Sanskrit, and it means it's not perfect, or it's kind of optimal vibrancy, where we are energized and strong and happy and healthy and free of aches and pains. You know, health is really important, because if we're really healthy, all of the other pillars happen easier and they're more effortless. Whereas taking part in hobbies, if we're ill, is harder. Having good relationships is harder if we're ill. Helping others is harder if we're ill. None of them are impossible, but they're harder. So there's a big emphasis on health. So it's about creating the ideal. If you've got high blood pressure and you're overweight, the ideal might be to have optimal blood pressure and lose 3 stone. Aim further, look further, aim bigger, expect more. Whatever it may be. So once you create the ideation, and it might be, pages and pages like mine was, It might be really creative, it might be pictorial. You can cut out pictures that you look at on the internet. So I cut out a picture of me holding a book with no title, and I looked at it every day as if I'd been given a book deal, and all of these kind of things. And it just once we've got the ideation clear, the next parts are easy, because then we just have to do the next set of sequences to bring that to fruition, which is where things like visualization, verbalization, but most importantly, actualization. And then something called, some of you may have come across a concept called Kaizen. Kaizen is a concept that means, anyone come across the term Kaizen? K-A-I-Z-E-N, Kaizen, and it means tiny daily changes that over time lead to incremental improvements. And it's about actualization, which is the fourth key, is about, right, and once you run the morning routine, something called the Brahma Mudra morning routine, which is where you actually every day you engineer the perfect day. And it's a really key module in the 6-month plan. You actualize. So right, today I need to do X, Y, and Z. And then, in these texts, they have this beautiful concept, which is that a brilliant life lived in the magic is just an accumulation of brilliant days lived in the magic. And all we need to do is take care of tomorrow and the next day, and then suddenly we build up. Okay, and for me, this is, I feel quite emotionally driven around this today, because those of you who are in the mentor, the Ayurvedic mentor, I'm going to do a post about this tomorrow, and I'll probably do a post on this Facebook group. An amazing lady died last week, who I've worked with for a long time. She was an exceptional cancer patient. She was 4 years past her prognosis, and she unfortunately died. She was a heroic woman. She was a warrior in terms of her outlook. And I was texting her husband, and he was saying how much, he was just thanking me for the support that we gave her. But I said it's the other way around, and I learned more from her. I learned more from her in those 5 years. I learned tenfold more from her than she learned for me, because she was the epitome of this. She went through the blueprint with me. I gave her the whole blueprint over many years, and she lived it with such intensity. And she lived more in those 5 years than most people often live in decades. And it brings home why it's so important, because it's not a dress rehearsal. We need to just seize and treasure every day. We can't afford to wake up. We all have bad days, and we all get out of bed the wrong time. We can't afford to wake up and not want to jump out of bed and seize the day. And things like, again, these traditions talk about silly things. It sounds silly, but when you actually do it, it galvanizes you. When you wake up in the morning, and I'm guilty of this more than anyone, but you see your husband or your wife, and you say good morning, you give them a kiss, or you see your children when they get out of bed in the morning, you give them a kiss and say good morning. But we do it absent-mindedly. We do it mindlessly. It's a habit. But Katie, the lady that died, said to me, imagine if you knew you only had a year to live. And when she saw her husband every morning, because she knew there's a chance that's very finite. When she saw him, she really saw him. She saw her husband, everything she loved about that man, and she gave him a cuddle and a kiss like her life depended upon it. And it's something that I've been trying to do. She died last Thursday, and it's something that I've been trying to do, is imagining, Holly and the kids, seeing them every day as if I was never going to see them again. And it makes you feel buoyant before the day even begins. You feel so grateful and just so happy, and you apply that to the other areas of life. And that's what living in the magic is, where you wake up in the morning and you can't wait to get into the day, whether that's what you're doing after work, the hobbies, the passions, whether it's the work you're doing, whether it's what you've got planned for the grandkids, whether it's going to the gym so you're on your journey to weight loss, whatever it may be. It's that galvanization of waking up and your day being engineered in a way that makes it brilliant. And that's what this is about. And it's way more meaningful to me right now because of just what's happened in the last week. And I think if Katie can teach us anything, what the lady that died, it's life is too short and too precious. Okay, and ideation is about how we take that preciousness and we use it to create how do I live my life in a way that makes sure I'm being true to myself and I'm living in the magic. So your task is that if you haven't done the Eastern Life Audit, do that, because to do this, you have to do that. Okay, once you've done that, your task is ideally tonight or tomorrow while this is fresh, is to get busy with ideation. Buy a notebook, buy an artist pad, sit down with a cup of coffee or a cup of tea on your own, with maybe with some music playing, whatever, and get busy with ideation. What's the ideal? What's optimal? If you knew you had a year to live, how would you want to spend your days? What things are most important to you? How do you engineer a life that is 10 out of 10? What's the ideal? Map it, write it, draw it, color it. It doesn't make any difference, because once we've got that, we can then put in place the practices to actualize those. And I want to talk about the first one of those tomorrow, which is a visualization, not in a woohoo wacky way, but in a concrete, neurologically proven way that comes from the East. Okay, so that's the second key, visualization. Okay, so please, 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 please practice ideation. Okay, and let the mind go. Do away with the neocortex, let the mind go. Okay, for those of you that have joined up to the 6-month plan, like I say, your first task awaits, and it's a crucial one. All of you who think you want to join, you can find the link on the top banner of the homepage, but I'll also post a link up on the Facebook page now. Okay, so a massive thank you for being here. Again, to have 100 people, 120 people here live is an absolute privilege, so I'm super grateful for your time. Have a lovely evening. Any questions about ideation, let me know in the Facebook page, and I'll be back tomorrow for the first bonus session, 7 p.m, around visualization. Cheers, guys. Have a lovely evening.